However, his success did not go unnoticed. A few months later, Poirier headlined an event. Facing off against the Korean Zombie, the Asian fighter had already made a name for himself in the UFC, delivering 2 phenomenal finishes, performing the first twister in the organization's history and tying the record for the fastest knockout by sending Mark Hominick to the canvas in just 7 seconds. The fight between the two young stars fully lived up to expectations. In the first round, Zombie scored a takedown, and at the beginning of the second round he unleashed a variety of strikes on Poirier, attempting submissions on the ground. Dustin responded and tried to change the situation, but to no avail. In the fourth round, when both fighters were already tired, Zombie landed a beautiful combination, cornered Dustin, and within a few seconds locked in choke on his neck. He's a champion. There we go. Korean Zombie just finished. Some publications considered this fight to be the fight of the year, but for Poirier it was his second defeat. He dropped to the 26th spot in the rankings, which made him reevaluate his prospects. Dustin decided to change the scenery and moved to Florida to train at American Top Team, one of the most respected gyms in the world. He was taken under the wing of Mike Brown, who at the time had not yet formally retired. Thanks to the experience and knowledge gained from Mike, Poirier managed to climb back into the rankings at the 9th spot. 7 months after the painful loss to Zombie, Poirier faced off against the Ultimate Fighter winner and immediately applied the same choking technique he had recently been submitted by. The thought choke works again. I think I'm coming into my own in the UFC. Feel comfortable here. Feel like I belong here when I'm in the locker room, warming up. When I walk to the cage, when I step in there, I feel like it's mine. I'm here for a reason. Shortly after this, the first UFC rankings were published and Poirier took the 7th position, right behind Cub Swanson. At the time, the featherweight belt was still around the waist of Jose Aldo, and the main contenders for his title were Chad Mendes, Ricardo Llamas, and the Korean Zombie. Poirier continued to work on himself and improve his skills, aiming for the top of the UFC's featherweight division. Eager to get back on a winning streak as soon as possible, Poirier accepted a short-notice fight against Cub Swanson. With less than a month to prepare, he weighed around 82 kilograms. To avoid raising any suspicions with the matchmaker, Dustin lied a little about his weight and began intense training. It was the toughest and most grueling camp of his career, but the work was done. Swanson was on a 3-fight knockout streak, but Dustin managed to give him a competitive fight. He kept a good pace, controlled the distance, and executed several takedowns. Tried to go for a head and arm throw, but now landing some very good shots and combinations too. But Swanson took the rounds due to his powerful bursts and heavier strikes. In the final 5 minutes, Swanson smothered his opponent on the ground. After that fight, Dustin returned to Louisiana, unsure of what to do next. His girlfriend came to the rescue, dropping out of medical school to move with him to Florida. With her support, Poirier fully dedicated himself to training and secured 3 consecutive victories. First, he defeated the 10th-ranked Eric Ko, a right hand, followed by a knockout of TUF winner Diego Brando, hook on the right leg. Some more shots. This could be it. That's it. Dustin the Diamond Puyat finishes Diego down. And finally he took care of Akira Kurasani, who was undefeated in the UFC. This winning streak propelled Dustin to the 5th spot in the rankings. Another finish. Fury wanted a rematch with Swanson, but instead he got a fight against a brash Irishman named Conor McGregor. At that time, the Notorious was just ramping up his brilliant career, but had already thrown a dozen challenges and angered half the roster with his behavior. It was evident at the weigh-ins that Poirier was too wound up and approached the fight overly emotional, for which he paid the price. In the first round, Conor claimed victory. Looking to finish the fight, it is over. Dustin, who had never lost by knockout before, faced another turning point in his career. Poirier took a short break and announced that he was leaving the featherweight division for good and aimed to become the champion at 155 pounds 70 kilograms. The time this statement was met with skepticism, but in his next fight, Dustin annihilated the tough Diego Ferrer. Poirier is sharp with those hands. Tonight, that's going to be it. He might be out. There it is. Then he faced Yancy Medeiros, dropped him within half a minute and delivered body shots a few minutes later. Down goes Medeiros. The event took place in Louisiana, Poirier's home state, and the victory was met with thunderous applause from the stands in this one. The striking of hooks. That's it. Pouring it on. That'll do it. Dustin. With these wins, Poirier ranked 15th in the lightweight division. Ahead of him were Nate Diaz, Darius, and champion Rafael dos Anjos. His main competitors were Anthony Pettis, Donald Cerrone on an 8-fight winning streak, and Khabib Nurmagomedov, who was dealing with injuries. Within a few months, Dustin moved up to the 13th spot and was paired against rising star Joe Duffy. The Irishman had already won 2 UFC fights, both in the first round. Duffy had previously defeated Conor McGregor, and many were anticipating his further rise. So the rematch was inevitable if Joe would rise through the ranking. Poirier and Duffy headlined an event in Ireland, but Duffy withdrew due to a concussion 3 days before the event. The matchmakers decided not to look for a replacement and rescheduled the fight for early the following year. They met at UFC 195 and, surprisingly, the fight was moved to the preliminary card, broadcasted exclusively on Fight Pass. The UFC wanted as many Irish fans as possible to watch the fight at a convenient time.